we finally figured out a really good streamlined process to work on music together, which is we all got new computers and actually started recording demos at home and then bringing them together, like sending them to each other, working on them together when we all get together to rehearse. So the preparation process for the new record was actually way more advanced than anything that we've done previously. Having access to all of this new technology to us, it's been really liberating and really inspiring creatively. Like I think like all together we've written so much more material over the past year than ever before. We were able to really let some of the lyrics start to develop a lot earlier in the process than sometimes we have in the past. Like we were able to really micro focus in on ideas and develop riffs with lyrical patterns in mind, with themes in mind. And so we've always had that in the past, but I think this time there was so much more opportunity to really be able to tightly hone in on those things.
Once the music has kind of started to form, the lyrical themes just kind of become evident.
Yeah.
And even between Joe and I write lyrics separately, but oftentimes it just seems like they kind of there's a mood that just kind of happens on its own.
I remember even like the first time that we got together to rehearse, and you and I talked about some of the themes that had been on our minds about like what the songs were going to be about. We were like really on the same page about it already without it having even talked. We had just shared like musical pieces, and then it was like immediately like, yes, that's totally like the direction that this record is going to go in. For my end of things, like, and where the source of inspiration was going to be coming from, because this past year was 10 years since my mom passed away, and I knew this was like a point in my life that I needed to really reflect back on how that had changed me as a person then, like all the way up until who I am now, because it had an enormously profound effect on me. So there is like a strong family element and like, I guess, like sense of the loss of like memories of that time. They like continue to fade away, so like trying to like hold on to what is still there while there's still time.
To add on to what Joe said, I think there's themes of like loss of memory and transience of things that you might think aren't transient, like things that are the foundations of your life, and how over time those things kind of melt away even when you're not really expecting it.
We ended up going with Sonic Ranch as the recording studio for Forgotten Days because we had a dialogue with Randall, and he had a few studios that were kind of at the forefront of places that he wanted to do the record. I think partially we looked at the gear list and we're like,
there's just like a enormous playground of sweet like vintage guitars and amps and stuff at Sonic Ranch. Like we recorded on a really sweet like Neve board. It's just vintage like Les Paul.
Lots of cool drums.
Yeah, lots of drums, synths and stuff.
This isn't a commercial for Sonic Ranch. Perhaps he didn't give us any money.
We also went completely buck wild with the Eventide H3000 that we had up there, and I think that like sparked an obsession like within the band after that.
Yeah, there's a lot of H3000 on there.
Yeah,
the Eventide H3000 is like a 80s like
it's like an 80s insane multi-effects unit, like delays and reverbs, but like nothing you've ever heard before.
Deeply like just weird. You get into some really weird territory, but also just like mega lush reverbs and spacious delay stuff.
sci-fi algorithm.
Yeah, I mean, truly, like
It has an enormous knob on the front that you use to change the settings on it, so
Very
it looks
80s.
like it's something like straight out of Star Wars, pretty much.
the available equipment had an impact on the way everything came around. Just because it's like, well, if you want to do a solo with like a, what was that, 59 like Les Paul,
Yeah, 59 like reissue
It's
or
like-
something.
sounds great.
It was about as close to a mystical experience as I can think of, and like
If only Mystical had been there.
yeah, at least in the last few years, because it was like truly like super remote location. We had all the food that we needed provided on site.
Yeah.
We had like a roaring campfire.
Pretty much every night after recording, just like hang out, with
Yeah.
stars and campfire, have a couple beers.
It was so cool to have a stressful day. Not even stressful, not in a negative way, but being
hard
in a studio.
work day.
Yeah, it's a hard work day. And then instead of going home, which is, just across like effectively a parking lot, a short walk, we would just go to a fire, whether it was cold or not, and talk about the day and the plans for the next day. And that's so like non-modern world, at least the world that I live in, kind of. And it was so interesting because it kept tensions at like low, and like every night you could just kind of refresh yourself.
Completely decompress. One of the most challenging things I think was actually just narrowing down what Forgotten Days the record was going to be, because we had such a prolific music writing time that it took a little while to really conceptualize like what group of songs made the most sense, like felt the best together on one record, and then like kind of fill in the spaces from there. But yeah, there was definitely a point in time during the middle of the year last year where we were like,
We have like 14 songs.
yeah, what are we gonna do? Like we usually like are like barely squeaking in at like 6 or something, and
Yeah.
we have like double that many, and even some more that are in some sort of early stages. And so the challenge of sort of like figuring out how to like impose some limitations on ourselves and know what works the best. I think that was definitely, I think that probably caused me the most stress, just trying to be like,
We have all these
Okay,
good
this is a
songs,
new
but we
problem.
can only use a few of them. Like, so, well, they all should be on there. We've been working with Mark's brother Michael for the last few, for the art for our last few albums. And yeah, he's a really good fit. I think he has a very visceral and emotional, personal style, and his clothes and everything. No, but his art's like very, very intense, very like emotional and like surreal, like, and psychedelic without being
Like overtly.
or just in a psychedelic
Yeah.
style. Like it's his own very like intense representation of these, like particularly his his like faces and his figures are very, very emotive and visceral. Yeah, and I think I think it's a great like visual representation of what we're trying to do with our music.